This video is presented by mybookie.ag. What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for UFC 246 happening this Saturday. A lot of people have been down on the card. A lot of people think that just the main event is a good fight. But if you actually take a close look at every single fight in detail, there's no fight that's bad. There's no fight that's necessarily boring. Some people say the co-main event is. But because there's no name that even comes close to Conor McGregor on this card, a lot of people think that, just the card in general is just not good. But there's a lot of good fights, actually. Tim Elliott versus Askar Askarov is one of the best fights on the card. One of the most action-packed fights on the entire card. Great grapplers, wild strikers, always committing for the finish, and Askarov is one of the biggest prospects in MMA right now. Alexa Kamer versus Justin Ledet is a very interesting fight because Kamer, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is actually a promising light heavyweight prospect. 5 fights in his professional career, but a much needed talent for this division, right? And he's going to be fighting a very well-rounded and more vet in the combat sports world, coming from a history of boxing as well as mixed martial arts. Grant Dawson, another great prospect to look forward to. Nasrat Haqparast is going to test himself against the veteran in Drew Dober. In this one, especially looking at Drew Dober's last fight, 100% going to be exciting. Haqparast brings all sort of tools, very similar to a Kelvin Gastelum, and he looks just like Kelvin. One of the best fights on the card, Andre Fili versus Sadiq Youssef. I believe most people think that this is a must-see fight. You got Maycee Barber, a lot of people are high on her, but she's going to be fighting the veteran in women's MMA right now, ROXANNE MODAFFERI, who nobody really has an easy time with. So the card itself, to me, when I actually went on and break down pretty much every single fight, looked at all the fighters, the card is not bad at all. There's no bad fights on the card. But we're going to actually start with that Andre Fili versus Sadiq Youssef fight. Even in Youssef's short career, he has beaten the best opponents that Andre Fili has also beaten in Gabriel Benitez, as well as Shayman Moraes. Both these fighters are mainly strikers, although Andre Fili will have the grappling advantage, maybe the wrestling advantage. I don't know. Sadiq Youssef's takedown defense is really solid, man, and it keeps opponents standing up with him, and he's able to utilize that power, especially in that precise right hand of his, and combining with his uber pressure, 100% he's going to be the one moving forward on Andre Fili. Fili's going to be scaling the cage, using his footwork and trying to find angles on Sadiq Youssef. But whenever you see Fili in this kind of situation where he's just trying to find an opening on a solid defense of someone like Sadiq Youssef, he tends to wait a little bit too long at times. But if we have seen one thing from Youssef is that the southpaw stance, especially from Gabriel Benitez, was able to be effective against him, right? The left hand was very hard for Youssef to see, as well as the inside leg kick. And we know that Andre Fili likes to switch stances a lot. So just taking the southpaw stance or switching into southpaw when he's committing through that opening, right? Staying orthodox when he's looking for the opening and then switching to southpaw, maybe mid combination to catch Youssef off guard with some of those holes whenever he faces a southpaw fighter. But the thing about Sadiq Youssef is, even if you take that southpaw stance and even if you start to connect on him, even if you start to be effective, he picks up on things very quickly. He is a very smart fighter, adapts and fights quickly, and you saw that in a Benitez fight, right? It was the scariest situation Sadiq Youssef had to ever overcome. Benitez is a long fighter, but Andre Fili fights a lot longer than him. But ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Sadiq Youssef because that right hand of his is just a little bit too sharp, and I think his adaptability is going to be able to pull him through for this fight, right? He's more powerful than Andre Fili. Fili doesn't have the same kind of head movement. He doesn't have the same kind of defense that Benitez had, or especially Shayman Moraes had. And because of that, the overhand right is going to be perfect for Sadiq Youssef to counter Andre Fili, right? Fili will sometimes overextend on his punches, which is another giant problem when you're facing someone as sharp as Sadiq Youssef, right? Youssef has amazing boxing, great leg kicks that Fili also doesn't check too well. So I do think it's going to be a problematic first round for Youssef to figure out Fili. But then I think in the second round is where Youssef is going to feel out the combinations, feel out that range, and start to connect. So I'm going to go with Sadiq Youssef. I'm actually going to go by a decision win because Fili is very tough and he's very crafty and creative out there. And then we go to ROXANNE MODAFFERI versus Maycee Barber. Very interesting fight. Like I said before, we have the most experienced female MMA fighter who has fought the who's who throughout all different kind of organizations, way longer than anybody else currently on the roster, has fought for belts multiple times, and she's going to be fighting the hot prospect with not even 10 fights in her career, 21 years old, in Maycee Barber. Right off the bat, I will have to say that ROXANNE MODAFFERI is overall the more technical and skilled fighter. She's a lot more composed. She has the veteran experience. Those are the major things that are going to be helping her in this fight. Also, she's slightly bigger, right? And she has a major grappling advantage if it goes to the ground. But like we saw when she fought Antonina Shevchenko, she was able to deal with some of the striking defensively against such a high-level kickboxer. But Maycee Barber brings a different kind of striking style, right? She's very physical, very pressuring, wants to break you down and just smash your face in, right? It's not a lot of technique, although she moves a lot, but her head movement is just non-existent. But she's very young, so possibly she could be making adjustments throughout her training camps between fights, but she is constantly moving, although she likes to be the pressuring fighter. So I do believe MODAFFERI is going to be one backing up, but I don't think she's going to allow Barber to initiate everything the way Barber likes to do, right? We saw JJ Aldridge do a very similar thing as well. Barber wasn't able to be successful with everything she was trying against JJ Aldridge, mainly because of the defense, as well as some of the counter shots, right? Barber's right there in the open for counter punches, but how long will that last? How long can MODAFFERI defend those power punches, defend the body kicks, defend the onslaught, defend the 100% power volume from Maycee Barber? Barber's like an engine, man, and she seems to have pretty decent cardio to go at the pace that she's going, right? Mainly because she's not the biggest fighter, right? She came up from 115, but she brought in that same kind of power into the higher weight class that a lot of fighters in this weight class don't even have. So it's so advantageous for her against everybody else. And MODAFFERI has pretty much no striking power, right? Very little. If she's going to finish you by strikes, it's going to be ground and pound, but her grappling is super elite. But looking even at her statistics, her takedowns are never really successful. She has a very hard time getting opponents to the ground. It's usually by scrambling down there or she gets taken down, which I do not think is going to happen. So my prediction for this fight, I do think it might be Barber's toughest fight in her career, but I just think Barber's just going to be too physical, too powerful, and just smother her eventually. And MODAFFERI just doesn't have anything to keep her off. Yes, there's takedowns, but I just don't think they're going to work against Barber. So I'm going to go with Maycee Barber. I'm going to go by a third round TKO, early third round. And then we go to Anthony Pettis versus Diego Ferreira. Now this fight is a lot more competitive than when you first look at it. First of all, they are very similar when you look at their general styles, right? Very good strikers, don't have the greatest takedowns, but have super scary jiu-jitsu. Although Diego is more boxing based on the feet, whereas Anthony Pettis is a lot more taekwondo, although he has tremendous knockout power that he has shown in his recent fights. I mean, the transition from wrestling focused camps to just doing what he wants to do completely changed his effectiveness in fights. He wasn't even punching that much, punching that hard when he was just focused on wrestling before. But now when he's training for what he loves, that punching power is back just like when he was the champion. So when they exchange hands with each other, who is going to be the one that comes out on top? Diego has felt and calling up against even scarier punchers in Mirbek Taisimov, right? In his last fight, and outstruck him for the majority of the fight, which was extremely impressive. That fight alone showed to everybody Diego Ferreira is for real. That's why he got this opportunity to fight Anthony Pettis. Not only does he have scary jiu-jitsu, but even as a striker, you have to respect him. Very fundamental boxing, very fundamental pressure. He doesn't back up from your strikes. He just evades with head movement, truck movement, and enters back at you. And this is something that can really work against Pettis because Pettis doesn't set up combinations. He's a one-shot guy. And Pettis will most certainly take the opposite stance, which he does to everybody else because he has that open side kick. So he's going to be a southpaw against the orthodox Diego, but this will also open Diego's long straight right hand. But the thing that takes it away from him is that jab, right? Diego sets up everything off that jab, a high working jab. That alone is going to make Diego fight more like a power puncher rather than setting up for his combinations or setting up for his openings, right? He's not a super powerful striker. He's not someone who chases the knockout. Pettis is a lot more powerful, I believe, and he's a lot faster. But the thing about Pettis is he is susceptible to pressure as well as susceptible to wrestling, takedowns against the cage, and Ferreira did say before this fight that he wants to test the jiu-jitsu. So if he goes the wrestling route as well as pressuring Pettis, maybe throwing some jabs out there, but looking to that left hand and looking to the left kick of Pettis, he could potentially pressure Pettis early to the cage and then start to use his wrestling, try to get it to the ground, test that jiu-jitsu, see who's the better BJJ fighter. I mean, even on the MyBookie betting lines, Diego Ferreira is a -250 favorite over Anthony Pettis. That's a huge favorite, right? So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Diego Ferreira. I know some people are going to be surprised that Ferreira is such a big favorite and why he is so favored over the former champion Anthony Pettis, who had a good fight against Stephen Thompson, a very crafty striker, and has some moments against Nate Diaz as well, especially early catching and rocking Diaz a few times. But the thing is, Diego just fought Mirbek Taisimov, right? That's a huge confidence booster coming up against Anthony Pettis. He evaded the kicks very well, evaded those power punches very well. Mirbek is a lot bigger than Pettis. He's a lot more powerful than Pettis. And he does have a very strong wrestling game. So he brings things to a fight that Diego is going to need coming into the Pettis fight. And he did everything he could very successfully against a guy like Tyson. So I'm going to go Diego Ferreira, and I'm going to go by a decision. I don't think anybody's going to get finished, but I think it's going to be a very fun fight, especially when it gets to the ground. And then we go to the co-main event, Holly Holm versus Raquel Pennington 2. Both fighters not doing too well in their careers right now. Holly Holm, since the Ronda Rousey loss, hasn't been shining too much at all. I mean, she had the knockout against Bethe Guerra and a good performance against Megan Anderson at a higher weight class, but she's lost 5 fights since that, and she is 38 years old. Right, fighting the 31-year-old Pennington, but the thing is, Pennington has gone through a lot of damage in her career, especially that title fight against Amanda Nunes, getting absolutely destroyed to the point where she mentally broke in the fight. So where are they going to be in this fight, especially coming off a rematch? I think they're going to have more confidence coming into this one, especially for Pennington, because she lost the fight, although she thought she should have won. So I think she has more of a chip on her shoulder, especially knowing that Holly Holm is possibly close to hanging up the gloves, and he wants to get at her first. I think Raquel Pennington is going to be the more motivated fighter, and Holly Holm is at the Jackson Wink gym, and they have a lot of turmoil going on with the fighters there. Fighters are leaving. Some of the most veteran fighters have been there for like 10 years at least, in Diego Sanchez and Donald Cerrone. I don't know how the gym environment, how the relationship, and how the tension is going to be in there, but I believe Pennington is going to have a more controlled and more ordered environment, as well as just wanting this rematch because she lost the last one. They had that first fight when it was very early in their UFC careers. It was Holly Holm's first fight, and it was Pennington's 4th fight. And I do think this fight is going to be pretty close again, because Pennington's a very tough fighter who just marches forward, and Holly Holm has pretty much the same setups for every single strike she wants to throw at you. The wrestling is not going to be a factor for Holly Holm in this one. Pennington's a better grappler overall. She's going to be very strong in the clinch, just like she was against Miesha Tate, and I do see a cat and mouse game going on. But I think the difference again is going to be Holly Holm just landing a little bit more point fighting and not getting hit by Pennington. Pennington's just a little bit too slow to land a counter shot on some of that movement that Holly Holm shows you. And I think Holm is going to use her reach, and I especially think she's going to use that sidekick of hers to just land points overall and win the fight. So I'm going to go with Holly Holm. I'm going to go by another split decision. And now we go to the main event. Very anticipated fight. Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone. A fight that a lot of people wanted to see for a while, right? And right off the bat, I know a lot of people are favoring Conor McGregor heavily for this one because of the style that he brings, and Donald Cerrone is sometimes choking in these fights, but I think he's getting better at that. I think the fights against like Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje, he was just outmatched. Like, he was just simply outmatched. He just got outgunned. He got caught. That's really what it was. I mean, Tony Ferguson beat him up. It was a very hard fight for Cerrone, no matter how he performed, no matter how he went out there, no matter how ready he was. It was a very hard fight. A lot of people believe that Cerrone won that first round against Tony. So does he still drop fights on these big grand stages? I don't know, man. I don't know if it's like that anymore. It used to definitely be like that, especially when you saw him rematch RDA. But look at how well he did in the first round against Ferguson, which is very high profile. He's probably one of the best fighters on the planet today, and did pretty well early on. And he is a slow starter. So that's a very interesting and also important distinction to take from that and bring it into this one. Right? Is it going to be that same slow starter that we're used to seeing in the past? Possibly, but I think especially because Conor is such a fast starter. Even if Cerrone is going to start faster than usual, he will never start as fast as Conor does. That will never happen. Conor is a Lamborghini, man. He starts strong, he starts hard, he starts sharp, smooth. He's almost a perfect fighter for the first round, and it's going to be very hard for Cerrone to get one up on Conor there. Cerrone's the kind of fighter, even when you saw it against Ally Quinta, he's a guy that just gets stronger as the fight carries on because he's having more fun. He's figured it out because he doesn't even watch footage, which I think would be very beneficial for his career. The fact that he's getting better and sharper and figuring you out as the fight goes on shows that maybe if he just watches footage before the fight, he wouldn't have to just figure out in the fight, right? Sometimes you will have to, because Conor, looking at his training, looking at his sparring, he seems to be changing parts of his style in preparation for Cerrone, as well as just evolving himself. This will lead a lot of people to think that early Conor's no matter what going to finish or at least win those rounds. Late Donald Cerrone is either going to finish or win those rounds, which means that Cerrone has to get past the first 2 rounds especially, right? But here's the thing, I don't think Conor's going to gas out like he normally did before. And the reason for that is Cerrone doesn't put pressure on you. He doesn't make you work, right? He just puts danger in your path. He puts roadblocks in your way. There's nothing that's necessarily putting a constant pressure on you to just slow you throughout the fight, like Khabib's grappling, like Nate Diaz's volume, like Chad Mendes' explosive wrestling. Cerrone likes to fight at a distance and just throw things your way, and not at a high volume, not at a tremendous pace. Just tat for tat. I see an opening. Okay, here's a kick. I see an opening. Oh, here's a 2-punch combo. Let's see if you get away. If you get away from me, okay, let's restart again. A good analogy would be Khabib and Nate's style style is almost like running against a high wind. But against Cerrone, there is no wind, but there's someone like throwing tennis balls your way. You gotta dodge those. Which one would be more taxing to get through, right? But he's not gonna be the one pressuring. He's gonna be the one moving back. Because he doesn't have that kind of footwork and because he doesn't put the pressure on you, Conor puts pressure on everybody. And the fact that he's gonna be backing up Cerrone's gonna have a very hard time throwing those kicks, right? He has to plant before he throws it. And the plant is gonna be very obvious for a guy like Conor McGregor, who has a very good understanding of movement. Even if he never seen these kicks in front of him in an actual MMA fight, he's gonna be able to see the startup. He's gonna be able to see the chambering and all that sort of stuff. And I believe he's going to defend them very, very well. Unless Cerrone throws something sneaky like a jab to something or tries to counter Conor coming in, potentially with a knee or something unorthodox that he doesn't normally counter with. But ultimately, I just don't think that's going to work. I think Conor's punch is a little bit too sharp. He's a lot faster. He's more powerful with his hands. He's extremely smooth to get in. Even though Cerrone has a upright, narrow stance, which is going to be harder to get the outside foot because the lead foot isn't far out there for you to get outside on from that long distance. You got to get in closer to get the outside foot on him and then land the left hand or possibly something like that. Conor will sometimes like to take the inside foot, but it's a very similar thing. Against Cerrone, you shouldn't be taking the inside foot because the knees are in your way. But that upright stance leaves Donald Cerrone as an open target. Cerrone has one way to evade shots with head movement, and that is he ducks under, bumps into you, or ducks under and goes for the double leg. That's the only thing Conor has to worry about when he's pressuring Cerrone. There's knees to the body, maybe, but he's going to catch one over the top, right? Conor has very long arms, 74-inch reach for a 5'9" fighter, so even if the knee is countering him, that left hand could possibly get in there quicker because he is quicker to act. And I think that left hand's going to land right over the top and drop Cerrone because it's going to be on one foot. So throwing the knee, he has to time it perfectly, and there's no other way perfectly to counter Conor coming in. And we have seen Donald Cerrone fight someone very similar in that style, right? If Conor does take that karate stance that he usually does, and that is Darren Till. Although Darren Till is taller, he does have a 74-inch reach as well, just like Conor, and he was able to smother Cerrone very early, cut him off, keep him on the cage. The kicks just did not matter. He was able to see them coming just because Cerrone was backing up. And in boxing range, Cerrone had nothing. He tried a couple takedowns, got him down one time, but nothing was really working, and the elbows were landing, the left straights were landing, and Conor's a lot faster and a better puncher than Darren Till with way better head movement. Not the same kind of size, not the same kind of brute power with his hands, but he doesn't need the size and he doesn't need that brute power with his hands. As long as he's a better sniper, as long as he hit the right button at the right time, which he usually does, just a couple good left hands in the first round, and Cerrone will probably not be the same for the rest of the fight. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Conor McGregor. I'm going to go by a second round TKO. I can see a first round, to be honest. I can see a late first round knockout for Conor. And another big thing, and like I said before, Conor's not going to be gassing out as much because there's no pressure on him. So I think Conor's going to be fresh for like 3 rounds. I really think so. He's going to be one that's going to dictate when the work is made, when to act, and who is going to act. He's going to be one that dictates the entire fight. This doesn't mean that Donald Cerrone has no chance. Cerrone definitely has a chance to win this fight. You know, he is a big underdog in this one. When you go on mybookie.ag, Donald Cerrone is a plus 260 underdog. Conor is a minus 320 favorite. He's like a 3-1 favorite over Cerrone. It's a big one, right? The way he's going to beat Conor, if he does, is use his wrestling. The most likely way he's going to beat Conor McGregor, the best chance he has, is use his wrestling early and often. He has the better cardio. He doesn't have to worry about gassing out against Conor. He just got to worry about the damage. That's it. He has to worry about that left hand. He has to worry about the setups. He has to worry about the angles. Those are the things he has to worry about, and he has to attempt takedowns, even if they fail early on, because Conor does have good takedown defense early on. You got to get Conor to work somehow. You can't just let him dictate the fight. Go under the left hand. When he pressures a little bit too much and you feel it, go under for that takedown. Maybe throw a jab under for a takedown. Just mix up something to make Conor work. And the thing about Donald Cerrone is, even if the takedown fails, he's getting in close and comes up for the tie plum. He comes up to clinch you, and now he's throwing knees into you. Cerrone's best ranges are super far out kicking range or extremely close clinch range. Those are the best places on the feet he wants to be, or on the ground, right? If it goes to the ground, Conor's going to be in huge trouble. Going on the ground with Donald Cerrone is almost equivalent for Cerrone being in boxing range of Conor McGregor. It's almost the same thing. And we do know that Conor is changing things up in his style. So Conor, if he's coming out with that traditional boxing stance like he's showing, and he only is using it for the close range, Donald Cerrone is going to be in huge trouble in that range. The hooks to the body, those body shots we know of 155 Cerrone does affect him very much. Left hook to the liver, right hook to the ribs, coming up and throwing that right hook over the top, ending his combinations like he's showing in his training is going to be so great to see from Conor McGregor. So for the people that trust that path for Donald Cerrone to win the fight through that wrestling, right, it just comes down to Cerrone's fight IQ. Is he going to go out there and utilize this? That's all that's going to matter in this one. There's too many X factors to be super confident in that pick, but it is a live pick. It is a very much likely chance that Cerrone goes out there and beats Conor McGregor. And just breaking down, analyzing that part of the game for Cerrone especially, or even some of the striking techniques he can use later on in the fight, because he has to survive the first 2 rounds, that knowledge can absolutely be beneficial if you go and bet on mybookie.ag. Like I said before, man, a lot of people just aren't looking at the card, right? The card is actually pretty decent, and that makes the betting side of this a lot more unknown and maybe skewer some of the betting guys just a little bit, right? So if you get in early and see, oh wait, this guy should absolutely win, but why is he an underdog? That kind of knowledge early on can really help you get some winnings at the end of the day. And betting on fights makes it a lot more exciting. So do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag. No one gives you more ways to win than they do. Fastest payouts, better lines than any other sportsbook, and I would not be telling you guys to bet with them if they weren't the best. And if you're someone who likes to bet a little but win a lot, you can try a parlay. With multiple picks on the UFC card, let's say, that you are confident in, you can put these picks on a lineup to create your parlay. If all your picks come through, you multiply your winnings. If you join now, MyBookie will match your first deposit halfway all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $2,000, you can get $1,000 in free money to play with. Just use the promo code WEASEL to activate the offer. That's promo code WEASLE to take advantage of MyBookie's sign-up offer. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid. Now, there are a lot of close betting lines, all the way from the early prelims to the main event. There's a lot of near pick'em fights. I do think Askar Askarov should be a bigger favorite than he is, but the fact that he has such a close fight in his debuting fight in the UFC, I don't think it tells you much, because he took a long time off of MMA and he was in all kind of contract negotiations. I think it played with his debuting fight and the fact that he might have had octagon jitters, right? It's a style that he should absolutely be able to win. The Justin Ledet versus Alexa Kamur fight is very hard to pick. Kamur is super powerful, like Hulk smash powerful. He pressures very well, he gauges very well, but Ledet is a better boxer, I believe. He's very tough, he has a veteran experience, and he's a better jiu-jitsu fighter if he gets to the ground. So it's a very hard fight to call. The crazy one is Maycee Barber being a minus 1,000 favorite. That is weird. That is a bit too much. I know she's a highly rated prospect, but man, a minus 1,000, really? There's fights on this card I would say have bigger favorites than Maycee Barber versus ROXANNE MODAFFERI. And I do agree with the rest of the betting lines. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. I am working on my podcast, and I'm also working on the Conor McGregor breakdown video, so those are going to come out very soon. I wanted to get the predictions out first after doing some thinking about it, because, you know, I want more time so people can look at the prediction video, probably get some things out of it, think about it more, and get ready for the fight card. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.